Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. It has been like 2 months since my last live video that I did. I've been putting up a bunch of shorts. I did a couple of posts, but life has been really busy since April. I went to Pennsylvania on a family trip and I came back. I traded in my pickup truck for another one. The new truck I bought ended up needing a fair amount of work, just minor annoying stuff like exhaust manifolds and brakes and stuff like that, but needed to do a bunch of work on that. Then I had family events, I had church events, I had birthday parties and baptisms and all kinds of stuff going on. So finally getting back to doing some videos that I've been wanting to do for a while. Tonight we're going to look at my JC Higgins Model 20, which has a divorced choke off the end of the barrel. And I need to run and make some special shells for that because a lot of people were saying that when you shoot those particular guns, if you use a standard wad in the shell, sometimes it opens up. When the shot leaves the barrel, it opens up and it actually gets the wad around the end of the choke and clogs up the compensator, whatever you want to call it. So tonight we're going to look at the shotgun. We're going to look at why I need to make some of these shells. And I'm going to try to find some load data and make some old-fashioned shells with fiber wads and traditional shot like they used to do back in the 60s and 70s when this gun was new. So let's go ahead and get into it tonight. And thanks again for joining me. So you've seen this on my channel several months ago. This is my JC Higgins Model 20. And if you go back to that video and watch it, this is actually based on a high standard Model 200. It's an all steel receiver. It's a steel barrel, obviously steel magazine tube. It's just a very well made gun. It's heavy duty and it's a 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch. But as we scroll down the barrel here and you see what the muzzle of this thing looks like, it has kind of this barrel shroud compensator looking thing on the end. And if you look closely, you can actually see that there's about an 1.5 inch gap between the end of the barrel and the choke on this thing. So the way this gun was designed is the shot comes out the end of the barrel, a bunch of the gas escapes through that compensator before the shot then goes through the choke and tightens the pattern up. So as I was saying a minute ago, this particular shotgun, a lot of people were saying if you shoot traditional plastic wad shot shells, a lot of time what happens is that wad opens up between leaving the end of the barrel and going into the choke, and it'll actually get bound up inside that compensator because of that little gap between the end of the barrel and the choke. So a lot of people were saying you can buy fiber shot or fiber wad shot shells. But for me, because I have the ability to do reloading, I have a couple of boxes of old fiber wads that I think are waxed. I don't know if they're for black powder, if they're for standard smokeless powder. I think one box that I have might be Winchester. But we're going to go ahead and make a couple of different loads with those particular shells and try to come up with something that'll work really well in this shotgun. So this is what we're dealing with here. I'm going to be using these Winchester Fast Dove and Clay shells. These are a 1 ounce load of 7.5 shot. Typically, I'm going to be reloading these Winchester 12 gauge. You can see on the bottom, these are once fired, very nice 6-point crimp hulls. And typically what you have is a wad like this. This is a figure 8 wad that would go into the shell. Powder goes underneath it, then the wad, the shot goes in the top, and then you crimp the shell. When this fires out of the shell, what can happen, these petals are meant to spread apart when you fire it, so the shot can release from this cup. And what people are saying is these can actually open up in between the end of the barrel and this choke and cause this thing to like get all jammed up inside that compensator. So instead of using a standard plastic wad like this, what you need to do is build up the same height wad column that you have here underneath the shot, and you have to use a nitro card or a gas seal on top of the powder to make sure that it seals well. So what I'm going to do is I made a bunch of these. I think it's like a 3/4 inch gasket punch. I punched a bunch of these out. That's going to be my nitro card. It's just corrugated cardboard. And then on top of that, you have to stack up enough of these fiber wads, which are 12 gauge. These are actually Federal 12 gauge 3/8 inch thick fiber wads. What you're trying to do is mimic the same stack height that you have for the bottom portion of the wad. So nitro card, 2 3/8 fiber wads all of the shot goes up on top of here. And I might need to either put another Nitro card or an overshot card on top of that to get the correct height so that this crimp will be tight. But that's the plan. I'm going to use some tight group powder, or tight wad rather, powder with a Nitro card, 2 felt wads, and then my shot on top of that. I might do a 1 ounce, I might do a 1 1/8. I'll probably do 1 1/8 because I think that's the charge bar I have in my press right now. But my plan is to make these around 1200 feet per second. Pretty light load. Online forums were saying that if you use standard load data, so this is my load data book, and they're saying like if I take, for instance, a tightwad powder using a Winchester shell and I want a 1 1/8 ounce load, if I use tightwad, I would use 18 grains of tightwad with a Winchester 209 and 1 RXP 12 wad. That would get me around 1200 feet per second. Some people were saying if you're using fiber wads, I don't know if it's because they compress more than a standard wad or not, but they say to bump this up to an extra grain. So if it was 18, go to 19. But for my purposes, I think I'm going to keep it at 18 grains. As long as the stack height works, I think that'll be fine. You know, that should get me somewhere in the 1150 to 1200 feet per second range. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here. All right, so I'm going to go through the process of reloading a few of these. I've already mentioned these are Winchester Fast Dove and Clay shells made for 7.5 shot. These were actually 1 ounce shells, but I'm going to be doing a 1 1/8 ounce. I have my powder bushing set up in here to throw 18.4 grains of tightwad, and I'm using Noble Sport primers because the primer pockets on these shells are a little bit loose, and the Noble Sport ones tend to be a little bit tighter. So there I have my primer in there. I'm going to drop this guy down, drop some powder in there. Now this is where it differs from a normal load. Again, I'm going to use a Nitro card on top of this, which you have to kind of manually put in the shell. Make sure that goes down, all the way down. Then I'm putting in 2 Federal 3/8 fiber wads. And again, I probably could do this using the press, but I never have. Oh yeah, you can do that using the press, works fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So 2 3/8 fiber wads gives me a nice solid push down there. Now I'm gonna drop my 1 1/8 ounce of shot. 6-point pre-crimp. Oh boy, this is what I was worried about. The stack height is way too low, so that shot is all the way down here in the shell, like 3/4 of an inch below the top. So I'm actually going to have to use 3 fiber wads, which is pretty crazy to get the stack height correct on this guy. But let's see with 3 fiber wads if I can get the stack height correct. This is always the challenge when you're kind of going off grid trying to do these loads. Yeah, and even with that, so 3 3/8 fiber wads. Feels good. Oh yeah, look at the crimp on that thing. That's a good crimp. So, wow, 3 fiber wads and at least 1 overshot card. So where's my bucket here? I got a bucket, and I'm going to try 2 different loads. I also have some Gualandi gas seals that I'm going to use, but for this particular load, I'm just going to load a few more of these the same way. So again, this is a slow process right now, but Noble Sport primer in my Winchester shell, then 18.4 grains of powder. I'm going to get my Nitro card, which again is just a little circle of cardboard. Push that guy down in there. Give me 3 3/8 felt wads, which seems excessive to me, but that's what I need to get the stack height correct. 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to drop my shot. Again, I'm going to do 1 overshot card this time. And crimp it. Again, very nice crimp, nice tight shell, not a lot of rattling around in there, looks really good. So I'm gonna do a couple more of these off camera, and then I will also try some with some Gualandi gas seals, which I'll probably still need 2 or 3 of those wads anyway. So let me do a couple more of these, and then I'll switch over and do some with the Gualandi seals. So I finished 25 of these that I used the Nitro card and the 3 fiber wads on. They came out nice. The crimps on them are very, very, very good. Shells look great. So now what I'm going to try is, instead of using a Nitro card, which again is just a piece of cardboard, I'm going to use some of these TUWGS12 Gualandi gas seals. They're the same shape on both sides. They're a little bit thicker. So what I might end up having to do is 2.5 fiber wads with one of these gas seals. And in order to delineate the difference between the Nitro card ones and the Gualandi gas seals, I'm using Herter's shells for these, and I'm using the Remington 209 STS primers because the primer pockets on these guys are super tight. When you're reloading, you always want to try to keep your powder measure and your shot measure, or your bottles, at least halfway full, because you need that weight of the powder and stuff pushing down on them to make sure that they're getting the proper drop into the shell. Let's see if I can get this one right this time. So again, Gualandi gas seal right on top of the powder. Then I'm going to do 2 full 3/8 thick fiber wads, 1 1/8 ounce of shot. And then this time, actually, that should be good enough for a crimp. I bet it's because my pre-crimper moved. One of the nuts loosened up on it. So let me reset my pre-crimp here. Let's try this again, see if I can get a better pre-crimp. Maybe that'll help. Oh yeah, that'll help. Quite a bit better. Not terrific, but quite a bit better. I'm going to do 1 or 2 more of these, and then I'll finish out this video because I know it's pretty long right now. I try not to do too long videos because I know a lot of people, I lose their attention span after about 4 minutes. So for those of you that stay through my whole videos, I really, really appreciate it. I know sometimes these aren't the most interesting for a lot of people that don't reload, but it's something I'm interested in. And reloading shotgun shells, it's not rocket science. It's probably the easiest type of reloading you can do. Granted, if you don't have a press, if you want to get into it, it's a little bit harder to get started because a press, if you buy them new, they're a few $100s. I happen to get all of my equipment used pretty much, so I saved a lot of money that way. Again, primer, 18.4 grains of tightwad, Gualandi gas seal, and I'm not going to do too many of these because I don't know if these gas seals are going to get stuck in that choke either. So that's why I'm only doing a few of these to start with. But Gualandi gas seal, 2 3/8 fiber wads, 1 1/8 ounce of shot, and then a nice 8-point crimp to finish it up. So that's not too bad. And the nice thing about doing this, all of these hulls I pick up for free from my sporting club. They have trap night every Wednesday night in the summer and the fall, and if I go there on a Thursday, assuming it doesn't rain on a Wednesday, but if I go there on a Thursday, I can pick up as many shotgun hulls as I want for free. I usually get 300 or 400 when I go there, you know, a couple of shopping bags full, and if I don't like them, I can just toss them. A lot of times you can just get random shells, but I've reloaded all kinds of shells, and if there's anything I've seen between watching Manny CA, the Shotgun Scientist, Tal Flatermouse, and Bubba Roundtree Outdoors on YouTube, most shells can be reloaded at least a few times, and even if you only get 2 or 3 reloads out of a shell, if you pick them up for free from your sportsman's club, it doesn't really matter because, I mean, you don't have to pay for them up front. If you're buying your shells up front, obviously you want something that's going to be a good enough value that you can reload 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. But even if you're picking up free shells, if they're Winchester Super Speeds or just really cheap hulls like these Herter's ones, which are also made by Winchester, Even if you get 2 or 3 loads out of them, so what? You didn't have to pay for these out of pocket, and you can make custom loads. So thanks again for watching another edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. Again, I apologize that I've been gone for so long off the YouTubes. I just had a lot of stuff going on. I'm trying to get back into it. I'm hoping very soon in the next week or 2 to get out to the range and take a few videos. Thanks for joining me on another edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. God bless America. Support your 2A rights. Get out there and shoot. If you have a chance to learn how to reload, I highly recommend it. There's no better feeling than being self-sufficient, being able to make up a custom load for an outdated shotgun that nobody makes parts for anymore or nobody makes special shots for, and being able to tune it to your own needs, using the shot you want, the columns you want, primers you want, and the hulls you want. So have a great night. God bless. Keep shooting.